These 6x9 folding cameras by Voigtlander are really amazing. They're excellent cameras. Let's take a look. Hey, thanks for joining me. So I've been out recently shooting pictures with a couple of these Voigtlander Bessa cameras. Now, I know I'm probably saying Voigtlander wrong, and if you're German, I apologize. I have a couple of friends that speak German, and they were suggesting that Voigtlander is probably not pronounced that way. It's probably something more like Voigtlander or something like that. I really don't know exactly. If you are German or you speak German and you would like to put a proper pronunciation in the comments below, I would love to know how to properly pronounce it. Anyway, so these are a 6x9 120 film folding camera that Voigtlander made. The Bessa, the original Bessa, starts in 1929 and goes through 1950, and then the Bessa 1 comes out in 51, and there's a Bessa 2. Kind of concurrently with this, there's also a Bessa RF that has a rangefinder rather than just a viewfinder. The rangefinder models, both the Bessa 2 and the Bessa RF, command some pretty high prices, so they're a little harder to find. But these that just have the viewfinder are very affordable. I was looking through eBay last night, and you can get these earlier versions like this for well under $100. And the Bessa 1 that has the chrome top cover with the built-in viewfinder, you know, $100 to $150, you know. And they're great cameras. So these, you can kind of get an idea for the date on these with a couple different things. Number one, this has this little lever that sticks out of the front door, and it retracts as you close the door. That lever, how can I turn this so you can see it? That lever retracts, you can see it, and then it comes back out. That's so cool. That happens in 1935. This cover that automatically pops open and covers the viewfinder, and the pop-up viewfinder, that happens in 1937. And then flash sync happens in 1945. And then there's some newer shutters that happened, I think, around 1949. But the camera has just, and this is one of the reasons I bought this version. I love this little pop-up viewfinder. So this has a really kind of a neat little flat spring-shaped thing there that as you push this down, it actually folds the two, you know, the front and the back are spring-loaded, and it actually folds those down. And then when you open the camera, this lever retracts, and as you open it up, the cover pops open. Ding. I love that. I think that's so cool. I don't know, that to me, that is just, you know, engineering that I don't know, not only is it helpful and it works, but it's also just really attractive and cool. I don't know, there's something about that. These, when this camera, when you open it, it locks open, and then there's a little tab you push right here that will pop the little joint up there, that past dead center pivot, and then you can close it, and then you fold this closed, and it's ready to travel with. I don't know that I'd really hang on to that little leather handle at this point. Leather's getting a little bit old. This camera's in pretty decent shape. I bought both of these online, and you know, you have to be a little bit careful, but the leather on the bellows on Voigtlander cameras is really excellent. Zeiss too. If they look good in pictures, they're probably going to be okay. There is a way you can take a bright flashlight. I use one like this, and because it shines the light sideways, and I'll actually open the back door and stick it inside and look, shine light, you know, at each of the corner sides of the bellows and see if any light's coming back through. And so that's real handy if you're buying one. Even if you buy it online, once you get it, it's a good idea to take your flashlight and stick it inside. Be careful not to hit the back lens, and then you can look at the corners and see if any light's coming through. And if it is, then you know you've got a bellows issue. You know, and if you're buying it online and there's a return policy, then you can decide if you want to return it or if you want to. There are people making bellows for these now. You can buy them online. They're not terribly expensive. The process of replacing it may be a bit of a challenge, but they definitely are making bellows for these now. So these, like I say, they're a 6x9 negative. It's a massive, it's a huge negative. So I also have here this morning a little Vito 2 made by the same company. And little folding 35 millimeter version, kind of the same thing. But I think what's really cool is you look at the size of the negative on 35 millimeter versus 6x9 120, and it's huge. The difference is massive. So you don't have to have a great lens to make excellent image quality with a negative that big, because it just doesn't have to have that much resolving power. So there's basically, and I know there's some of you are going to say, stop, no, wait, there's more, but there's two main versions of lenses. The low end is a 3-element Cooke triplet designed lens, and if it's not coated, if it's earlier, it's going to be named a Voigtar, V-O-I-G-T-A-R. And if it's coated, it's going to be named a Vascar, which is what I think this one is. Yeah, you can see the name Vascar there at the top. So this is a 3-element Cooke triplet, but if you stop one of these down past f8, f11, the image quality is really excellent. You'd be surprised how good it is. The next step up is the Scop R lens. The Scop R is a 4-element Tesser type prescription. This one, the writing inside the lens is stamped in there or engraved in that decorative ring, but there's either the paint has disappeared or maybe it never was painted, but it's kind of difficult to read. But it's a Scop R, but you notice this lens doesn't have that blue reflectiveness to it. It's just neutral. This is an uncoated lens. Now, even though this camera was made after World War II, they had not started coating lenses yet, so obviously it's a little bit older than this one. The lens is not coated. The ones that are coated will be called a color Scop R, and so pretty easy to tell, plus you can see the coating. Don't be afraid of one that's not coated, though. On the pictures I'm going to show you today are actually from this camera with the uncoated lens. All these cameras, coated or not, you don't want to let the sun shine directly into it. If you can, get a lens hood, but even if you don't have a lens hood, make sure the sun's either coming from behind you or from the side. Don't let the sun shine. In other words, a backlit subject is going to create some lens flare on one of these. So you have to be kind of careful with that. But people took pictures for a long time, well, up until World War II, with uncoated lenses, and there's some thought that the coating is necessary for color photography, and yet Kodachrome slide film came out, and movie picture film came out in 1935, which was before coating, 10 years really before coating was a thing. So it, a lot of color pictures taken before and after that time with uncoated lenses, and it does fine. But they will have lower contrast. They're going to be a little softer. If you're scanning your negatives, you can increase the contrast in post-production. If you're printing from the negatives onto photo paper, you can use a higher grade of contrast paper or a multi-grade paper with polycontrast filters. You can bump the contrast up that way. But either way, these uncoated lenses still do a great job. I didn't shy away from one, and I wouldn't suggest you should. They're just really excellent cameras, and the image quality is really something amazing. Now these give you, it's such a big negative, you only get 8 images on a roll of film. They do make a mask that goes in this that changes it to a 645 format, 6 by 4.5 centimeter. And the viewfinder has a little tab right here that you can lift this tab up, and it raises a mask in the viewfinder so that now the viewfinder is 645 versus 6 by 9, and it's vertical. So if you have the mask, you can put the mask in, it snaps in that opening, and then you can get 16 pictures in a roll, and it be vertical, narrower image. Now this little knob here you turn with your finger, just press and turn, opens the window for the film counter. And if you have the mask in, there's a little lever that it presses right down here, and that lever then allows you to turn this a little further and opens up the other window. And so that way you can basically, as you see the numbers come across as you're winding the camera, you'd first see the number, like the number 1 show up here, and then after you've taken that picture, you'd move it till the 1's over here, and you take the next picture, and then you go to the number 2 and number 2 again, and that, because it only counts to 8 on that row, but that way you can see all 16 exposures. But if you find one of those masks, or if you have one, if one comes with your camera, don't lose it. They're very valuable. I see those masks online, and they cost more than the cameras do. A couple $100 I've seen them, which is crazy. I'm sure there's probably somebody out there that could 3D print one. I don't have a 3D printer, nor do I know how to do much of that, but I would bet that could be done. I imagine I could probably fabricate one out of brass or aluminum or something like that and anodize it and make one. But the loading film in these is pretty straightforward. You'll always have an empty spool. You're going to want to put it on the take-up side so that you can take the film up. Now this knob pulls out a little bit. You can drop the spool in and then push the knob in so it winds. Put your new roll of film in over here, pull it across, put the leader in the slot, and then use this key to wind the film until you get it wound around a time or two. I usually bring it till the arrow like shows up down here, the arrow that goes across the paper, and then close it up and wind it until you see, the number 1 show up in the first window. So anyway, the only thing I would say you have to be careful with film loading is that this knob has a groove in it. You can see when you pull it out, there's a groove in this knob. And if you don't have that pushed in all the way and you close the door, then the door won't go. The door actually has a notch in it that goes into that groove. And if you don't have this in all the way and then you close the door, not only can the knob come out, but it also cause a light leak. So you want to make sure that that knob is in all the way, pushed in all the way when you close the back cover. So, like I said, great image quality, just really easy cameras to use. The focus on these is pretty straightforward. I think this and the numbers are easier to see on. Basically, it's front element focusing, so you turn this until you get the distance you want. You can guesstimate your distance pretty close if you can find a little accessory rangefinder like this one. Has a little dial on the back that you look through this window, and there's 2 windows on the front. It's like a rangefinder. In a rangefinder camera, you have a static image and a moving image, and when you line the 2 up, then you're in focus and you can read the distance on this little scale and then transfer that to the lens. For the most part, you can guesstimate the distances though. There is a depth of field table on some of these, and you notice that it has like a round spot, and it says 20 feet, and then the little tilde, or the dash rather, that means 20 feet to infinity, and then this is at f8, and then there's a little pointer that says 8 feet to 16 feet. So on the lens itself, you'll see that there's, I can turn it so you can see, there's a little circle right there. And that circle represents the spot here. So if you put it on that circle and you're stopped down past f8, it says f8 right here. If you're stopped down past f8, then everything from 20 feet to infinity would be in focus. If you turn this until the little diamond line, or the pointer lines up, where is the pointer? It's kind of hard to see it backwards. I was right on it. So this little pointer thing that's lined up now, then from, 8 to 16 feet would be in focus. So you can set, these are called hyperfocal distances, and you can set those, and then just basically, like if I'm shooting people that are relatively close, 8 to 16 feet, I can just set that on that little pointer. As long as I'm stopped down past f8, I can just kind of point and shoot. I don't have to really worry too much about focus. Same thing if I'm shooting subjects that are a little further away, I can put it on the circle, and everything from infinity to 20 feet is going to be in focus. And again, I don't have to really worry. Now, if I'm shooting landscapes or something that are, and I'm not trying to get the foreground in focus, then I could just put the camera at infinity and the landscape would probably be in focus. If you have some things in the foreground, though, that you want in focus, that hyperfocal distance will allow things as close as 20 feet to appear in focus. Things then further away would be in focus. And that's as long as you're stopped down past, f8 or smaller aperture, f8, which means, f8, 11, or 16, or 22. Now, the shutter speeds and aperture are set. The shutter speed is you turn the rim of the shutter and you can see the shutter speeds that you're setting, a little pointer there that moves. And then the aperture is this little tab that you move to set the shutter speed. These have a cocking lever. You cock the shutter, and then this lever out here on the door that you press it will fire the shutter. There is you can actually see this as you press this lever out here, this lever right here moves up and down. So it's actually tripping the shutter. There's a self-timer up here in the corner. You can pull this lever down and then cock the shutter, and then when you actuate it, you can then run around. Obviously, you're going to have this on a tripod. Run around, get in front of the camera, get in the group picture or whatever, and then when this times out, it will take a picture. So there's just they're a totally cool camera. I love this folding viewfinder thing. I love the way these fold up. Little tab here that you push and it folds it up. It's just a great design. I love these cameras, and the image quality is fantastic. So, if you are looking for something that will, make a big negative, take some neat pictures, these are really nice in that you fold these up. I mean, these are thin enough. You could put this in a jacket pocket. You could put it in a purse or a carry bag of some kind, and then easy to pop out. And you're going to be able to make some negatives. I mean, you can shoot color film or black and white with them. They do make, I think they're still making transparency or Ektachrome film in 120 size. I don't think too many people use that much, but you can certainly get color negative film in 120, or you can shoot black and white. And these just do an amazing job. We're going to look at some pictures I took in black and white. Actually, I took them with this camera, the one that has the Scop R lens that's not coated. And just kind of wandering around downtown, took a few pictures. So I'll let you look at some of those. And then we'll come back and you can see what you think. Well, I hope you enjoyed those. I've really been enjoying these cameras. There's something about this design with the little pop-open viewfinder and the little release lever that pops out of the door. And I don't know, the design of these, the engineering is just really great. And it's really cool that a camera made so long ago is still very usable today. I don't know. They're just beautifully made, beautifully engineered, and just a joy to use. And they're lightweight, they don't weigh much. And that big negative, it's just, you can, you get these scanned, or even if you print them with an enlarger, you can make really nice size prints off them, and they'll look fantastic. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. If you have any thoughts or questions, please don't hesitate to leave me a comment. I always love hearing from you. And again, if somebody knows how to pronounce Voigtlander or Voigtlander or however you pronounce it, I'd love to hear what the proper pronunciation is for someone that actually knows. Anyway, I appreciate you watching. Thanks for joining me. Hope to see you next time, and thanks for watching.